Hello, ladies. You are welcome to another edition of Dear Younger Mom. This is our intentional parenting programming where we seek counsel from the Word of God so that we can nurture in the nature of God. So this week, I had the pleasure of catching up with a dear friend of mine. And one of the things that we talked about actually is informing our discussion for today. We talked about how it's our children who get to evaluate us as a mother, right? And it got me thinking about the role that I play as an educator. If you did not know, I teach pharmacy students, and at the end of every semester, sometimes even mid-semester, we get to have student evaluations. And while we have peer evaluations, student evaluations actually way more because those are our clients, those are the ones who we are teaching. And so the effectiveness of our teaching is based on how it comes across to them, what it does for them. I will tell you, earlier on in my career, I used to feel like, oh, what are the students saying? But these days, I kind of like, I calm down, I look at the evaluations, and if there are things that they're talking about that I need to change, I take that into consideration. Let me share with you one of the things that I got back as feedback earlier on, in my career. So if you all know how as Nigerians, when we get on the phone to talk to someone who is somewhere else, we're always shouting. I don't know that whether the shouting gets the person to hear us better, but I don't know. It's probably just a Nigerian thing. Anyway, this carried over to class for me because I teach across campus. And so I have students who are seated with me on the campus that I am in, and then I have students who are on a different campus, and we have all this technology. And so I would put on my, microphone pinned to like the lapel of my jacket, and it's actually just close to my mouth. And I would be shouting. And so one of the things that the students, feedback that they gave me was that I was always shouting, and it was grating on their ears, right? Actually, all I needed to do was talk with my normal room voice because the microphone was very sensitive. It does pick up on whatever sound, and so my voice was really amplified because I was shouting. And so I took that into consideration. And now when I get into class, I just talk normally like I'm talking to people. It was a good thing that I heard that because we all have blind spots. And so in our motherhood journey too, we do have blind spots. And so we have to have a sort of what I would call a feedback mechanism so we can hear back from our children. Okay? Some things that we're doing with good intention may not be coming across as such. I will tell you one of the things I got as feedback at some point. I've told you before about what we started doing. We call it Speak Up Saturdays. And one of the feedback that I got, I've gotten a lot of feedback, but that was, about maybe some things that I had said and how it had hurt, one of my kids. And it wasn't intentional. I didn't say that. I actually said it as a joke. But sometimes you can joke about something and you don't know how it's coming across to the person who you might be telling the joke on. So those are the type of things. We do have blind spots. So this is not so that the children can tell you how to parent. No, that's not what I'm talking about. But sometimes we're doing things, saying things with good intention, and maybe it's not translating well. And so we need to talk to our children. We need to devise a mechanism, for feedback. Okay, we need to devise that mechanism so we can hear from them. So Proverbs 31:28 tells us her children rise up to call her blessed. They don't just call their mother blessed because she's their mom. No, it's because of her behavior, her attitude, all the things they see about her. That is what elicits that. And it says her children, not one child, not two, all of them. So sometimes the feedback we're getting may be about a specific child because how something may be coming across to one child may not be how it's coming across to the others. I will tell you, when I was growing up, there were things I would say to my brothers, that mom said this and I was crying, and they're like, and that's why you're crying? Because that very thing did not come across to them that way. They interpreted it differently, they read it differently. And so that's where feedback would be very important from that particular child, because all of them are not interpreting your actions and your attitudes in the same way. Feedback is very necessary. Second part of that Proverbs 31 verse 28 says, and her husband also, he praises her. So that's the peer evaluation for me right there. You can ask your husband, or others too. Okay, I am also aware that some of us may be single moms, but there will always be somebody around who you can ask, how is this translating? How are you seeing my parenting? Let's get some feedback because we all have blind spots. We all have blind spots. So let's get feedback from our children, and it doesn't matter how old they are. You can get feedback from a toddler, you can get from an adolescent, a young adult, it doesn't matter. I hope you have been blessed by this. Get some feedback. I'll talk to you at the next episode.